Welcome to the Division of Plastic and Reconstructive Surgery. Today we are going to discuss the faculty and staff travel and expense reimbursement policy. The Procurement Service Center sets forth requirements for authorizing university travel, determining travel expenses that can be covered by the university, and accomplishing the reconciliation and reimbursement process. Except as otherwise noted, these requirements apply to all individuals engaged in such travel, whether employees, associates, affiliate fiscal staff, or other individuals traveling on official university business. Travel expenses paid by the university must be incurred for official university business. Under the university's accountable plan for commercial credit card use, cash advance, and employee reimbursement, employees are required to substantiate the business purpose of the expense, provide any required receipts, and reimburse the university within specified timeframes. These procedures set forth university requirements for payment, including reimbursement of employee incurred business expense without the payment of reimbursement being included as part of the employee's taxable income. Employees must fulfill all of the following requirements set forth by the university in order to substantiate business expenses related to business travel and employee reimbursement. An expense report must be submitted in the Concur travel and expense system to document purchases and any requests for reimbursement of out-of-pocket expenditures where the employee used their personal funds to cover university travel or non-travel expenses. In the expense report, the employee or delegate must provide any required receipts along with sufficient information to identify the expense and to support that it is for official university business. The employee must submit the expense report within 90 days of the date of the related trip's end or within 90 days following the purchase date for non-travel expenses. Creating the Concur report or providing documentation to a delegate for the report does not constitute submission. The employee must return to the university any funds not spent or otherwise owed within 90 days of the date the expense is incurred or the date the related trip ends. In summary, the responsibility of the employee or traveler is to explain how the expenses they incurred were business related, attach required documentation, reimburse the university if necessary, and submit the expense report on Concur within the 90 days identified. As long as the report is first submitted in Concur within the 90 days, then the report expenses will not be taxable to the employee. The report does not need to be fully or partially approved within the 90 days, just submitted. If an approver has questions and sends the report back to the employee, and then the employee resubmits the report after the 90-day window, it is the first submission date that is used to assess the compliance with these procedures. Employees who do not meet the conditions of the university's accountability plan by complying with the previously stated procedures will have the amount of the related expense reported as taxable income on the employee's pay stub and on IRS Form W-2. Once reported, these cannot be reversed. Now let's discuss the employee travel process. Once you have decided you would like to travel for official university business, the first step is to complete and submit the pre-travel request form. Once the form has been submitted, a member of our administrative team will begin working on your travel trip and will be in contact with you regarding updates to your trip or if any more information is needed from you. We will take a look at the sample form after some further details. Conference registrations. A member of the administrative team can assist with completing and paying for the conference registration fee. Faculty or staff can also purchase the registration fee themselves and submit the receipt for reimbursement. However, the reimbursement will not be processed until after returning from the trip. It will be included on the travel expense report. All flights must be booked by a member of the administrative team using the Concur system. Faculty and staff cannot book flights themselves through the airline's website. If the employee chooses to book a flight themselves via the commercial airline website, the expenses will not be reimbursed. The only time it is allowable to book through an airline's website is if there is a substantial cost difference. This is in the case of if the traveler finds a flight more than $50 cheaper for domestic flights and more than $200 cheaper for international flights. Flights booked off Concur must still have a Concur flight cost comparison quote to show the price difference for the same exact itinerary, or the flights will not be reimbursed. Flights booked off Concur will not be reimbursed until after the trip's end. If a traveler decides to book their own flight due to a substantial cost difference, they must still let the administrative team know so that we can pull the Concur flight cost comparisons for you. The faculty or staff member is responsible for making their own lodging accommodations. This expense will be paid upfront by the employee and will be reimbursed after returning from the trip once the expense report is completed. When possible, lodging accommodations should be made at the conference hotel using the allotted room block. Booking the base rate is required for reimbursement unless pre-approval is obtained to upgrade accommodations or for non-hotel lodging. For non-hotel lodging, please let the administrative team know ahead of time so we can still pull cost comparisons in case the Procurement Service Center asks for those in the expense report. If a rental car is being requested, this needs to be stated on the pre-travel request form. Rental cars must be reserved through the Concur system by the administrative team. Cars booked on commercial websites will not be reimbursed, regardless of the price difference. The reservation made through Concur will reserve the car, but the employee will have to pay for the rental car when the car is picked up at the destination and provide the itemized receipt for reimbursement. If not requesting a rental car, transportation accommodations will be paid by the employee upfront and itemized receipts will be submitted after the trip for reimbursement. This includes Ubers, taxis, Lyfts, airport parking, etc. If using a rideshare, tip will be reimbursed up to 20% of the trip. Anything over 20% will not be reimbursed. If you would prefer to drive instead of fly, this needs to be stated on the pre-travel request form. If you're wanting to request mileage reimbursement instead of airfare for business travel, the request requires prior department approval. A comparison quote must be printed from Concur Travel and attached to the final expense report showing flight costs. The traveler will only be reimbursed for the actual mileage up to the actual total flight cost from the comparison quote. Now let's take a look at the division's pre-travel form and what it would look like for you to fill it out to request travel. Here is our pre-travel request form. On this form, you will provide us with further information regarding your travel, including your contact information, position title, what and where the event is, as well as travel items you will need assistance with, such as flights, conference registration, etc. Please remember that flights and car rentals must be booked through Concur by an admin team member. At the bottom of this form, there's an option to provide additional information. It is extremely helpful if you can provide the exact dates, times of flights you want, as well as the airline and any airline member rewards numbers that you have. Now let's talk about a few items to remember while you're traveling. For lodging, the employee will only be reimbursed for the lodging rate and taxes. If other charges are on the lodging receipt, such as room service, minibar charges, etc., these additional expenses will not be reimbursed. For rental cars, do not purchase any additional insurance or gas through the rental car company, as reimbursement is not allowed for these additions. Make sure to obtain an itemized receipt from the rental car company upon returning the car. Save any itemized gas receipts from gas stations while traveling, and these receipts can be submitted for reimbursement after returning from the trip. For parking at conference hotels, you can only be reimbursed for the self-parking rate. We are not allowed to reimburse for valet parking. The university does not reimburse for itemized food receipts while traveling. We provide a food per diem reimbursement based off government rates for the city you are traveling to. If the conference you are attending notes any meals offered at the event in the conference agenda, then that meal will be deducted from your food per diem reimbursement. There will be no reimbursements for group meals while you are traveling. Now let's discuss the post-travel process. After you return from your trip, all receipts must be submitted via the post-travel form within 7 days of the trip's end. We will also see a sample of the post-travel form after further details. All receipts for expenses must be in your name. Receipts cannot be in your spouse's name, partner's name, child's name, a friend's name, if you have shared lodging or any other expenses. All receipts must be itemized. All receipts must show proof of purchase, meaning the last 4 digits of your credit card are shown or a balance due of $0. Unfortunately, Apple Pay or Google Pay is not allowable by the university as proof of purchase. When required itemized receipts are not available, the employee must document the situation, adding comments to explain that the receipt was lost and that your efforts to obtain a duplicate were not successful, as well as identifying the items that were purchased. This explanation replaces only the itemized receipt. The employee must still provide proof of payment in the form of a credit card receipt, bank statement, or a copy of a check. When filling out the post-travel form, these are the required receipts the administrative team is looking for: a lodging receipt, transportation receipts, and airport parking receipts. If you are attending a conference or an event where all of these expenses are paid for by an organization, then you can just make a note in the post-travel form. Transportation receipts for ride shares or taxis are only approved for work-related travel, such as travel to the airport, travel from your airport to your home, or travel from the airport to the hotel. A ride to a restaurant or to a friend's home will not be reimbursed. Now let's take a look of an example of the post-travel form so you can see what details and where the attachment fields are that you will need. Here you will see our post-travel request form. On this form, you will provide us with the receipts from your recent trip and let us know if you want food per diem reimbursement. You will notice that there are plenty of spaces to attach multiple receipts and add comments for any receipts that may be confusing. If you have any issues uploading receipts for a trip, please do not hesitate to reach out at any time to the administrative team. Other travel policies to take note of. For conference covered travel, if a conference or sponsor is covering any of your travel expenses, such as your hotel or airfare, please include a note about this in the pre-travel request form. We will still need all receipts when you return from the trip, even if you are not requesting reimbursement for those expenses. The PSC requires proof that you attended the conference to reimburse for any additional expenses that were not covered by the conference but are allowable reimbursements, such as Ubers or food per diem. If you are combining personal and business travel, please indicate this in the pre-travel request form along with the dates that you are taking personal time. You will only be reimbursed for expenses during the dates of business travel. Our administrative staff will be able to work with you directly on these trips that include personal travel to answer any questions specific to the nuances of this trip. Now let's discuss expense reimbursements that are not related to travel. In order to receive reimbursement for a business expense, the following information is required: the nature of the expense, the dollar amount, the date and place the expense occurred, and the business purpose of the expense. For reimbursement expense reports, an itemized receipt and proof of payment are required for all expenses and for official functions in any dollar amount. If the receipt is lost, the employee must document the situation, and this explanation replaces only the itemized receipt. Again, the employee must still provide proof of payment in the form of a credit card receipt, bank statement, or a copy of a check. Before making any purchases that you wish to request reimbursement for, make sure that the expense has a valid business purpose and falls within university guidelines to ensure you are eligible for reimbursement. After completing a purchase, submit itemized receipts showing proof of purchase and explanation of the business purpose to the PRS reimbursement form. A member of the administrative team will work on processing your expense report on Concur. If anything else is required from you, a member of the admin team will get in touch with you regarding the additional details. Once the report is ready in Concur, you will receive an email to review and submit the report. If you are wanting to host an official function, such as a recruitment meal or a team appreciation meal, prior approval from the Department of Surgery and division leadership is needed. The university, as well as the Department of Surgery, have very specific policies regarding official functions, and prior approval is required in order to receive reimbursement for any official function expenses that may be incurred. Essentially, anything that includes food or drink is considered an official function. The most common types of official functions are community relation functions, donor cultivation, employee appreciation, goodwill functions, recruitment functions, student functions, or training functions. If you want to host an official function, please email the request to plasticsadmin@cuanschutz.edu. Your request must include an explanation of the official business purpose, the number of expected attendees, list of names of attendees, event date, event location, estimated total cost. A member of the administrative team will then submit this request on your behalf to the department and division leadership. They will let you know if and when the request has been approved. The university official function allowance is noted below. These rates include tax and tip. You will not be able to be reimbursed for more than this allotted amount per person, no matter the amount on the receipt. For breakfast, it is $30 per person. For lunch, it is $45 per person. And for dinner, it is $115 per person. The university only allows reimbursement for up to a 20% tip. If you choose to tip more than 20%, you will only be reimbursed for 20% of the total bill. If you receive prior approval to host an official function, following the event, you will need to provide the following items: an attendee list, an itemized receipt showing proof of purchase, and a meeting agenda showing what the purpose of the event was. Please submit these documents to the PRS reimbursement form, and a member of our administrative team will work on processing your reimbursement on Concur. We will now take a look at the division's reimbursement form so you can see what the form looks like and what details will need to be included. The last form we will review today is the PRS reimbursement form. This is for any reimbursements that are non-travel related. On this form, you will provide your contact information, detail if the reimbursement is for an official function, and provide receipts. There is also a comment section to provide additional information for the business purpose of the reimbursement. Thank you for taking the time to review the university's travel and reimbursement policies. For any questions regarding business travel or expense reimbursement, please contact our administrative team at plasticsadmin@cuanschutz.edu.